Who loves a weirdo? I think we all do. Let's take a look at players who have weird combinations of fantasy skill sets, stats, categories, whatever you want to call it, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and Weirdos. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and what? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here. And right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. Download the FanDuel app at FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms. So, what we're doing here, we had a look at trying to just tier players a little bit differently. I know it's going to hit people's brains differently because there's not point guards, shooting guards, small forwards, power forwards, centers, because I find there is a redundancy, or not even a redundancy, is it just, I don't think it's useful, to be honest, because of the way that different players in different positions stack up. So we looked at multi-category stat stuffers, the big dogs, the guys that hit above average in 5 categories. Then we looked at guys who hit the big man sort of numbers, not including the stat stuffers, rebounds, blocks, field goals. Then we looked at scorers, points, threes, and free throws. And then we looked at assists, steals, and free throws, and who could get a combo there. What I did is I looked at all of the different combinations of the 8 standard fantasy categories. And then for this show, what I'm looking at is which categories appeared the least frequent. So the combinations of above average in certain categories, there are some players that just doesn't exist. So we talk about unicorns, like finding a guy that can give you above average in a couple of these different spots is maybe we value it a little bit more because you just don't find that. Now, often it crosses over between the traditional big man build, small man build. But most of you aren't going for 3 category punts or 4 category punts, which realistically, if you're doing a big man build or a small man build, that's what you're doing. You're punting 4 categories and trying to win 5. Yes? Because that's how it splits. So if you're not doing that, and most of you won't be in a head-to-head category league, you'll be punting 1, maybe 2 categories, you need to find some weirdos. You need to be able to get contributions that sort of bridge the divide, that come across the middle and go, there you go. Like the, what's that handshake meme from, is it Rambo? No, it's not Rambo. What is it? I can't remember. It's the black arm and the white arm with the muscles shaking hands. I can't even know what it is. I can't remember the movie it is. Anyway, who cares? I'm sure someone will point it out to you. Is it Rocky? I think maybe. I don't know. I got no idea. I forget it. But that's what we're trying to do. Bridge the gap. Cross the aisle. Find the weirdos. Find the weird categories and who has those. And who is sitting in those sort of areas that we don't like to talk about in polite society. Go. I'm talking crap. All right. So what I did here is look at, I think, the 5 most rare statistical combinations. Assists and blocks is just one you don't get. Now, part of the appeal of the multi-category stat stuffers, Jokic, Wemby, Shea, those 50 players that I talked about with above average contributions in at least 5 categories, is they do cross the divide. They do span right across and give you contributions in multiple areas. I'm not going to talk about those guys because if you draft those players, like, you know what's up, right? You know what you're getting from those guys. When you're coming in and you're picking Giannis and you're picking KD or you're picking Anthony Davis or Jalen Johnson or Amen Thompson or Scotty Barnes or down to look at Tyrese Maxey or Jaren Jackson, you know you're getting above average contributions in more than half of the categories. Right? So who are the other guys though? The guys that might not be as well-rounded but still hit the weirdo zone. And for assists and blocks, there were only 2 players who did not show up as one of the stat stuffers, but also were above average in assists and blocks. Now, I know most of you would have guessed it's Draymond Green. That's a pretty obvious one. The next one is a player who I think this guy might just be bad, but he does project to have above average assists and blocks. If you are watching on YouTube, you can see the name. It's Bilal Coulibaly. Now, Bilal's season was really good for 2 weeks, and then it was trash. And his rookie season was pretty bad. His Eurobasket was horrendous. Maybe he just can't shoot at all. Maybe he can't do anything. Maybe he can't ramp up usage. Maybe he can't do anything offensively with scoring. His passing is pretty good. His shot blocking is okay. His steals are okay. And when I say above average projection, I'm not talking 2 blocks a game. I'm not talking 7 assists. I'm talking he might be 4 assists with 0.8 blocks. So he barely squeaks in. But before we write off Bilal, and I don't think there's anything wrong about writing off what Bilal's doing because he's been terrible, right? Like he just hasn't really been good. And it is year 3, so maybe there's a breakup. But before we write him off, if we're going to be considering late round flyers, and we should be always in the late rounds, that's how the name comes to be. Someone who can hit the assists and blocks is very clearly not an easy thing to find. So while Bilal might score 6 points, and he might shoot 44 from the field and 60 from the line or something, although he was at 75 last season, that's a little bit unfair. But someone who gets you assists and blocks, and it's not named Draymond Green or Nikola Jokic or Victor Wembanyama or Jalen Johnson, it's a little bit of a feather in Bilal's cap, as much as we might want to write him off. And I actually do want to write him off. I don't, because it's year 3 and I don't like to do that unless it's Johnny Davis until 3 years are done. The signs are bad, but this is just a little bit of a reprieve, I guess, for Coulibaly in terms of where we're valuing him in that fantasy realm at the moment. Draymond, we know, like Draymond is going to be fine. If he plays at center, it probably helps him a little bit. But if they do sign Al Horford, I don't know that happens. But it's so much going to depend on Horford and Kuminga and how much growth they get out of old mate Quinton Post. And we'll see which direction they go at center. But Draymond might start at center. I don't think he will. I think that it'll be Post or Horford. But Draymond will still do his thing. Draymond is going to do that in lesser quantities than what happened 6 or 7 years ago. But he's Draymond. Like we get that. That's an easy one to know and to understand where that value comes from. We're going to come back and talk about points and blocks as a category to talk about, as a weirdo category. Today's episode, though, it is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is right now. It's here. The Dolphins have finished, but that doesn't matter because FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff, or you're ready for week 2 actually now, with the can't miss offer. New customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You can use it on individual games. Just straight up, who's going to win? You can do the spreads, the totals, player props, same game parlays, parlays across multiple games, futures, cross-sport parlays. The options, they're not quite endless, but they're pretty close to endless on FanDuel. And as a new customer, well, you got that additional $300 in bonus bets that if your first $5 bet wins, well, you get the bonus bets. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by going to FanDuel.com and getting started. That is FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. All right, so the first group of weirdos was guys who are above average in assists and blocks. A very weird combo. The next one is one that's not quite as weird because the assists and blocks is the weirdest. It's the most uncommon combination. This one here is points and blocks. Now, outside of the stat stuffers, 4 names came up as having above average projections for points and blocks. Some of these ones, again, I don't think it's that hard. And the weirdo type guys, they don't always have to be last round flyers. Like, for example, Chet Holmgren's got an ADP of 24, which is absolutely too high on Yahoo. Let's get that clear. I love Chet. I think he's the second best rim protector in the entire NBA and an unbelievably good defender, but I don't care. I'm not taking him at 24 or even 30, where he is at Fantrax. He was, according to my Durant metric, 86 last season. 56 in points leagues. 66, actually, in points leagues. And, yeah, I think he'll play more minutes than the 27 he played. Yes, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that I care that much. That doesn't mean I want to go to round 2 for him. Don't be swayed by Chet and the way that a traditional 9-cat rank will make him look superior. All I have to tell you in that, all you have to tell yourself is if you're looking at those numbers, like, yeah, do I believe that Giannis is the 60th best player? And if your answer is no, then discard every other number. Then the other numbers don't matter. That's straight, simple as that. Chet averaged 15 a game with 2.2 blocks. I think it's fair to say we get sizable increases in the points, 17, 18 points maybe 19. I'd say that the blocks could hit 2.5, And then anything else you get on top of it is gravy. Could he get to 1.8 threes? Maybe. The 3-point numbers, the percentages have been good, but there's a lot of inconsistency in it. Same with his free throw numbers. But he's good. I just don't want to go to round 2 with Chet Holmgren. In terms of points and blocks, I actually do project Ivica Zubac, even though I think that he's going way too early. I think he's going to be an above-average points and blocks guy. The arrival of John Collins and Brook Lopez hurts his overall upside. If you're taking him at 34, I think it's a mistake. But Zubac has got an ADP on ESPN of 56, which is a lot better. And he is a strong contributor in that rare combination points and blocks. Because the only other 2 guys who aren't the multi-cat stat stuffers who do this are in my projections. Alex Sarr, and again, I don't know. One thing I do know about Sarr is I don't think he plays only 27 minutes, although now I am worried about his calf injury. And I'm very confident he will block close to 2 shots. And if he doesn't play 27 minutes and plays 30 minutes, the scoring should hit 17 or 18 pretty easily. And while I don't expect that he's going to become a hyper-efficient player, I think he's going to be way better than last season. Well, he has to. If he's not, then Jesus, we've got some real problems. And the other name there again, which is where we talk about weirdos, even like a multiple type weirdo, because it's Andrew Wiggins. We're talking about Chet, Zubac, and Sarr, centers. Wiggins is going to play small forward, but he's a pretty good shot blocker. He should be able to get 18 to 20 points a game in Miami, and like 0.9 blocks. Could he average 1 block? Probably, maybe. So that's, again, one of those guys that goes very late. 124 ADP for Andy Wiggins on ESPN, 102 on Yahoo, which is probably about right, honestly. But he's a name that always gets forgotten. No one is excited to draft Andrew Wiggins, but that, again, bridging of the gap, the weirdo contribution of points and blocks, which Wiggins, I think, will provide, is something I just think we need to pay a little bit more attention to. The next one is also an important one, and this is where, when you talk about the studs, when you talk about the top-end players, having this combination is often what sets them apart. It's players who are above-average contributors in three-pointers made and in field goal percentage. Because usually, the more threes that you make means you're taking more threes, and inherently, three-point percentage is lower than two-point percentage, meaning that the higher volume of threes that you take drops your overall field goal percentage down, hence why field goal percentage is actually a terrible measure of efficiency, and it's not a category we should actually include in fantasy, but we do, so whatever. But if you can find a player who is able to be an above-average contributor in field goals and in threes, well, it's a pretty impressive number. And that's where the top guys come in. Anthony Edwards, James Harden, probably not above average in field goals, but Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. These sort of players, Donovan Mitchell sometimes, these guys who can hit that above average threes and field goals, is realistically a pretty rare thing. Jamal Murray has done that. But these are all 5+ above average contributors. What about the guys who aren't quite as well rounded? Zach LaVine is one of those players. He led the league in three-point percentage, I believe, last season, or pretty close to it. So his field goal percentage is very high, and he's done this many times. And he hits a lot of threes. Bradley Beal's efficiency has been awesome in Phoenix. And it's not like he's going to be tasked with a larger offensive role to maybe impact that efficiency. They're very easy to hate, Zach LaVine and Bradley Beal. Terrible contracts. Situations where injuries have been a problem for them at times. People just don't like these guys. I'm not saying I'm super high on LaVine. I think if you're taking him at 54, which is his Fantrax ADP, it's just way too high. I do like getting Beal where he's going. LaVine to me is a little bit of a later option. But again, you want to boost your team's threes with, while not even hurting your team's field goal percentage, but actually helping it. It's a rare combination. There are 5 guys who hit that number. The last 3 are quite interesting. I know that a lot of people expect Obi Toppin to do more this season with no Miles Turner, with no really centered to of note Jay Huff and Isaiah Jackson are the guys and James Wiseman. Toppin is a limited fantasy guy. Steals and blocks are usually putrid. He's not an assist guy ever. His usage was pretty good. He played 20 minutes a game. You do not want him playing center for large chunks of time. They will play him at center, but you don't want it happening often. But what he is an incredibly high field goal percentage player. Look at him last season, 53% from the field. Now, he hit 1.4 threes last season. I'm expecting Toppin to play more this year. Push those threes to 1.9, 2 a game. Maybe 1.7. But hitting still over at 50%, which is that power forward, center, because often power forwards and centers who hit threes come in at 47% from the field, which is below average. But if you come in and you're hitting 51% and hitting 1.7 threes, well, as you can see, it's not that common, especially for later round picks. And then we get to Zach Ricochet, who I don't think people fully realize how efficient he was at the second half of last season. Ricochet is still pretty empty. Actually, he's not that dissimilar to Toppin in terms of the assists are non-existent. He doesn't rebound very well. He doesn't get blocks. He did hit 1.6 threes last season in just 25 minutes, and he shot 46 from the field. I actually think we're going to see improvements in his percentages to push him to around 47, 48, probably 48. I think he hits 2 threes a game and scores 15 a game. I think he's going to start, and I'm very confident that Ricochet is going to play more than 25 minutes a game. So, while is he exciting as a number 1 overall pick? Not really. Do I think he's got huge stud potential? Also, not really. But as a late pick, and I'll put up the numbers in terms of ADP of these guys on the screen at the moment, Ricochet goes pretty late. 129 Yahoo, 147 Fantrax, 138 ESPN. By the way, Yahoo updated some of their rankings. I'll probably do a show on that the next day or two. Not that there's gigantic changes there, but it is something that we will address. The other name on this list is one of those guys that you can stream in. Now, I think that the ADP data here for Aaron Man Who Saved Basketball Wiggins at 100 is a mistake. Not that it's a mistake that someone drafted him there, obviously, but they probably meant to draft Andrew Wiggins, or it's one of those ones where he was drafted in 2% of leagues and someone made a mistake and it pushed him there. His ADP at 100 is not realistic. He's a guy that won't get drafted in 12-team leagues. But we saw last season that Wiggins would have these big runs, high efficiency runs, a lot of threes, scoring, and field goal percentage, which is just not a, as you can tell, not a common thing, especially towards the back end of drafts. So if you're talking leagues go a little bit deeper, that rare combination, the weirdo-ness, is an important thing. I think it's, I don't exactly know how to quantify it. I find this probably more interesting than when people look at things like out of position stats. Oh, well, he's a center, but his assists are a 5, so that's more valuable than a center getting 12 rebounds. I don't know that I fully ascribe to that. I understand where the point of it is. I think these weirdo type combinations are probably more interesting or more telling of influencing a player's value. That if you see someone that sits in these groups and you go to view them a certain way, let's say you say, I think that he is the 150th best player, but you got a weirdo grouping, maybe bump him 10? Or at least consider them a little bit more as a tiebreaker, the way that you might use playoff schedule or quality games as tiebreakers. Maybe the weirdo-ness is a good enough tiebreaker to consider to differentiate between players. We got a couple more weirdo categories to get to, and of course we will get to them. The next weirdo category we're going to talk about is assists and field goal percentage. Assists are usually, or traditionally, maybe more to the point, the domain of point guards. And the point guards traditionally also have low field goal percentage. It harkens back to what I said earlier, talking about small man build, big man build. Small man build, you're going to have points, threes, assists, steals, free throws. Big man build, you're going to go rebounds, blocks, field goal percentage, turnovers, and also steals in the middle there. Having the cross-aisle contributions from players is interesting. Now, of course, there's detriments to some of this stuff because, as you can tell, the first player on this list is Domantas Sabonis. Now, Domantas Sabonis is going to get you rebounds and assists. I do think that some of it drops. His second half of last season, pretty bad after Zach LaVine arrived, at least compared to what he has been before. So, taking him at 9 or 11, not interested. But he does provide assists and field goals. The problem being with this is that normally when you're getting a field goal percentage player, you're getting blocks. You don't get that with Sabonis. Normally when you're getting assists, you're getting really strong free throws or threes. You don't get that with Sabonis. So there are downsides to this, especially for reaching early for a weirdo player like Sabonis. You have to understand that it makes all of your other decisions, I don't know if it makes them harder necessarily, but it makes them more, you've got to be more intentional with it because he gives you the big assists. He gives you the good rebounds and field goals, but he doesn't give you the blocks. He doesn't give you threes. He doesn't give you free throws. So you're sort of in no man's land. You've got to make the most of the calls after that. And the same goes with Dyson Daniels, who again, that's a weird combo. Assists and field goals. Of course, Dyson's got his strength in steals. But normally a steals guy, an assist guy, will hit you 80% from the line. Bro goes at about 50. And 50 from the line is very tough. The volume's not huge from Dyson, but it's still an impact. Someone did ask a question in the comments on YouTube yesterday saying, man, I can't believe you haven't figured out a way of how to determine free throw percentage impact because someone who takes only one attempt at 90% is not as good as someone at 87 at 5 attempts. And I just want to, again, make this very clear. That is literally what we do. That is what we do at Basketball Monster. Every mention that I have of field goal percentage and free throw percentage and impacts on categories in Durant and Standard 9 Cat, every one of those is weighted by volume. So that problem has been sorted. When we view impact of percentages, field goals or free throws, it is not a 90% guy is better than an 89% guy. Absolutely does not work that way. That volume part of it has been accounted for and has been accounted for since fantasy rankings were invented. So don't stress about that. If you were worried or you didn't know that clarification, the volume has been accounted for. It is a part of that formula. But anyway, Dyson's not a huge volume free throw guy, but again, you're getting the assists and the steals. Here we go, be a small man Bill. We're off. But your free throws are in trouble. Now, we're going to talk about this more when we do punting shows, but often when you're punting categories, you might be punting free throws. One of the things that does become hard to find are assists, because usually the bad free throw guys are low in assists. But Dyson provides some big man numbers. Field goals, field goal percentage, some blocks, while still giving you some of the guard numbers like assists. Weirdos. Pascal Siakam is also in this group here. He should bump his assist numbers pretty sizably. His assist numbers were good in Toronto. He came to play in Indiana, and predictably they fell next to Tyrese Halliburton. But he's not next to Tyrese Halliburton, so I expect they go way up. Now, his usage should increase, which might impact his efficiency. And I don't like the 22 ADP for Siakam or 28 on Yahoo. I think that's a little high. But I do think his weirdos, he's really interesting. Now, of course, field goal percentage and assists, he gets you no steals or blocks. He's a bad defensive guy for some reason. So you've got to factor that in. Josh Hart has, again, a crazy ADP at 35. You don't want to do that. The 55 on Yahoo is too high for Josh Hart as well. But we know that he is a weirdo. He is a huge weirdo. He's a rebounds and assists guy with high field goals and steals. I'm a little concerned that the field goals don't stay as high as they were last season for Hart, where they sat at 53%. But he had 6 assists and 1.5 steals. I think the assists could hold to a degree. Now, I don't think he plays 38 minutes, and I've said that many times. But the general shape of Josh Hart is going to be pretty similar. Low threes, great rebounds, good assists, good steals. Okay free throws and good field goals. I think it sort of holds. So he's in this mix. And then when we're talking about two guys to look at the bottom of drafts as waiver wire streamers, as deeper league guys, TJ McConnell and Trey Jones. We know both McConnell and Jones will get you assists. And you probably know that TJ's a really high field goal percentage guy for a guard. A weird combo. Field goals, assists, and steals. But Trey Jones also, considering he doesn't take many threes, or due to the fact that he doesn't take many threes, is also in that boat. And I don't think that that's one that's necessarily all that well known. The last one I'm going to look at is, you hear the common thing we talk about. The three highest volume categories in basketball or in fantasy are points, rebounds, assists. You see the props, the PRAs, total PRAs. You see how often they influence the value of fantasy points leagues. You see how often they skew the value of a player because they're literally just bigger numbers. 17 points is a bigger number than one block. Yet they're both around average contributions. But it's a bigger number. 6 rebounds, 4 assists, they're bigger than 1 steal or 2 threes. The numbers are just bigger. So we do head towards those. But getting rebounds and assists at above average levels are not easy to find. They are when you talk top end guys. Wemby, Jokic, Shea, Giannis. We can just keep going and going. LeBron. There's so many of them. Doncic. There's so many of those guys. But the guys that aren't in the stat stuffer category, who hits rebounds and assists at above average levels? Well, the obvious one here is Mr. PRA himself, Paolo Banchero, I guess? Not really. But Paolo Banchero is the points, rebounds, and assists man. He doesn't hit field goals at a high level, or free throws, or get steals, or get blocks. His threes are not bad. But he's a PRA guy. So he crosses the divide, the rebounds and assists, point guards and centers. Together at last. Nuts and gum reference. But he's there. Sabonis, we just talked about. This is what he brings. Interesting that as much as I might be down on Sabonis compared to ADP, he's hit two of the rarest weirdo categories. Assists and field goals, rebounds and assists. It's just a very weird combination. With a lot of downside as well. Dyson Daniels also. Pascal Siakam also. Interesting. Now, obviously, the assist part of that, they're playing more like big men roles with assists added in, even though Dyson's a shooting guard. But the multiple appearance of these players is intriguing. We can also go to Paolo's teammate. I can't shoot 30% from three legend, Franz Wagner. Now, Franz is on the borderline of being a stat stuffer. He might be an above average category guy in 5 categories. But at the moment, I've got him at 4. I don't know, that ADP for him is very clearly wrong, so I apologize about that. That is not his ADP. He's going in the mid-rounds. But Wagner is a guy that's going to be above average in rebounds and assists. Now, what happens to his usage this season with Desmond Bane around will be something for us to watch and pay attention to. But I still think that he's a solid player. You just don't want to get him in the 30s. There are 3 more names on the rebounds and assists weirdo grouping. 2 of them we've spoken about already. Draymond Green, again, another weirdo. And Josh the Hitman Hart, another weirdo. We've spoken about them. What about Rowan Barrett Jr.? Because he's like I was going to say he's like a poor man's Paolo Banchero, but let's be honest, he's just a Canadian. Points, rebounds, and assists is what Rowan brings. Steals, sometimes. Threes, percentages. Well, he had that one little run of being a good field goal percentage guy, but his free throws are always trash. And I don't really know how it all fits in Toronto. And there's a lot of talk that they look to trade him or he comes off the bench. I don't think that it comes off the bench, but whatever, he might. But still, what RJ does is give you those 6 assists. No, he doesn't, sorry. 6 rebounds, 4 assists, maybe 20 points, but probably not. Probably 18. But he's still crossing the divide. He's over the Mendoza line. I don't know what the Mendoza line is. I probably should look it up. It's probably something really bad. But he's over the middle of that. Big man numbers, guard numbers, in the middle. But of course, you have to reckon with the fact that he's shithouse in other areas. And how can you justify having a Canadian on your team? That's up to you. So that's the weirdos. What we're going to do tomorrow is, I'm not sure, if you want to leave a comment on this, you can. Whether I listen to the comments or not, I'm not sure. But leave a comment. Do you want me to do my overall rankings, top 24 for points leagues and category leagues? Or do you want me to look at the adjustments on the Yahoo rankings, the X rank that came out? They're both going to happen. It's just about which one I do tomorrow. As well as auction draft content coming this week. And 1 to 2 mock drafts, I would say. Yeah, I would say that's accurate. Hit the thumb on the video. Also, hit the hype on the video. I need to find that YouTube hype logo and put it on just so you know. Hype it up. That doesn't mean writing hype in the comments, although you can do that. That helps. But hitting the actual hype on the YouTube app would be great. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.